back. Welcome to the Smart to Noise Ratio Pro Audio Podcast. I'm your humble host, Jon Dayton, coming to you live from the road this time. That's right. Out for an out-of-town gig tonight. By my side, the inimitable, ubiquitous Jon R. Baiocco, known far and wide by his stage name, Chachi.
Hello.
We just talked about this a little bit last week, caught a gig with our friends, the Water Coolers. They had one in Pittsburgh, and we got the tap for it. So packed up a bunch of stuff yesterday, hit the road early this morning, and just had a whirlwind of a day, and now we're decompressing. We're on the long road back home to the Buffalo, Western New York area. So we thought we'd whip out the laptop, do a little podcast, and I don't know, nothing special in mind tonight. Just going to kind of go through the whole process of doing a gig like this. I don't know, just so you can have the experience. I guess to some of you listening, this might be old hat, but I don't know. To me, it was I think it was a pretty unique kind of gig. It sort of combined, I kind of felt like a wedding DJ, but working on Broadway.
Yeah, it was definitely a crazy mixture.
So, here's the concept. The Water Coolers, if you missed the other podcasts where I've talked about them, are a good-sized troupe of actors. There's a couple of producers at the top of things, a handful of writers, and their main shtick is if you took the TV show The Office and turned it into a Broadway musical. They sing catchy, clever show tunes about corporate life. They have run off-Broadway. It's been licensed to run in 4 or 5 other cities. But their main shtick is doing this at corporate events. Companies will hire them to come in and do like a little dinner entertainment at the end of a big conference or the shareholders meeting or something like that. And in addition to writing stuff that's just sort of generally funny about the business world, they'll write industry-specific jokes. And even the first gig I did for them was for a financial company. They talked to some of the high brass and learned some things about the company and some acronyms and some procedures, and wrote like a Gilbert and Sullivan style number about whatever their company did. So the gig we're on tonight is a slightly different thing that they do, called You, the Musical. And this is all totally worth looking up. There's actually going to be some video of this gig. I'll probably post it on the web in a couple of weeks. So when that drops, I've got to cut the audio for it, and the video's got to get cut and stuff. But when that drops, it should be pretty cool to look at. So what they do is, for any given event, any given city, they put it up, and I think at any given time, I may not have this right, but I think they said there's somewhere between 30 and 50 actors in their troupe, and it's 4 actors go out on each one. Sometimes they tour, sometimes it's catch as catch can, and whoever's available for this one or whoever they pick for this one, they go and they meet in the city. They usually get a chance to get together somewhere and rehearse their stuff most of the time, although the first gig we did for them, they had never practiced that material all in the same room together, so they did a couple of run-throughs. The thing that was special about this one, it was You the Musical, and it was for a wedding, so they had rewritten some of the bride's favorite pop tunes and country tunes with lyrics describing how they met, how they became engaged, and some stuff about their families, and the end of it was sort of a toast to the happy couple. So, well, I guess we'll just give you the procedure. This one was kind of nerve-wracking. I just... Chachi will agree with me. We're sort of coming down off it now. I'll lay the day out for you. I did all the packing yesterday, pulled together all the gear I was going to need, and this was originally going to be throw some powered speakers in Chachi's sedan and cruise down there, sort of mix it on a laptop with a small audio interface, and it blossomed into a 14-input show, and we multi-track recorded the thing, wound up running one of the photographer's video cameras for them.
Lights now.
Added lights at the very last minute. So it was getting very hectic and very at the last minute.
Don't forget, we had to bring the keyboard.
Yes, and that was my bad. I actually knew that right from the get-go, and I either overlooked it or forgot it. So at the last minute, I had to scramble around and get a keyboard, too. So everything was packed in the van, ready to go last night. And this was on top of a pretty hectic week for me. Stuff just kept piling and piling on. And fortunately, I only missed one thing. It was unfortunately fairly important, but there's a chance for me to redeem myself for the one thing. I failed to record one announcement for the video at church this weekend, and it was one that was near and dear to my boss's heart. So Brian, if you're listening, I feel awful, and I'll get some stuff in place so that doesn't happen again. So this morning, well, actually late last night, Chachi rolled over to my place so we could leave bright and early. We piled into separate vehicles, and he followed me to work because it was an hour already in the direction that we were heading. We dropped his vehicle off. It was actually when I get back from this gig, I'm staying in town because tomorrow morning I have an 8 o'clock call to get the Sunday service sound checked and then head out on a movie shoot. So we parked cars, threw a couple last minute things in the van, got on the road, and we were nervous. Talking about other kinds of events that we do, like I've done festival stages where I've had to get 26 bands on and off in a day, and that was just on my stage. I've done theater with 24 plus wireless mics, plus another, I mean, I've had a 40 channel console, every channel full for theater before. I've worked for high profile clients, I've worked under serious time constraints, distance, complexity of events, and I sort of feel like this is the most stressful event I've done in the best part of the decade. Chachi's just nodding. It's a podcast.
Yeah,
okay.
I gotta... Sorry, I should be used to this. I'm on the radio. Yeah, it was definitely stressful. Even for me, and I freak out all the time, but I was freaking out like 3 times as much as I normally do.
So anyway, he stayed at my house, flopped on my couch, and was bothered by my cats all night. And then bright and early, about 7 a.m., we jumped up, grabbed some coffee, got on the road. We had, all told, probably about a 4.5 hour drive with stops and whatnot.
Roughly, yeah.
Had to stop a couple times along the way to talk to my intern back at work who was out running the location sound for the movie shoot that took place today. He was taking out some, I don't want to say untested, but not yet tested in full battle equipment. And we got through a couple kinks and got him rolling again. And so we arrived at the hotel where everything was taking place just at the stroke of 1 o'clock, which is when the room became available to us. Now, originally, we were only going to have 1 hour. Like, the wedding itself was going to take place in the room where the reception was going to take place. And they were just going to shoot them all out for an hour to go have cocktails while they loaded in, changed all the, got all the place settings in. And I think it was going to wind up being too tight for the caterers, which is how we lucked into that. Because otherwise we were going to have to just make it work. The DJ was going to have to get in there, the lighting company was going to have to get in there, and we were going to have to get in there, set up, it was just 2 pole speakers, but plus 3 monitor mixes, plus lights, plus 4 channels of wireless mic, a wired mic, the recording rig, and meet up with a photographer and get set to do video in an hour. So as it was, we were definitely pleased to get there at 1 and knew that we weren't going to see the talent until 4:30. So we loaded in at a nice leisurely pace. It was a bit of a haul. We had to hike some gear through the hotel because it's in kind of a congested area. Got all the stuff in, and I think once it was all in the room, I think we finally had everything in the room just about 2. And at 3:15, we had it all locked down, ready to go.
Yeah, we had it done.
Got all the mics checked out, fresh batteries, and then from that point on, we were just kind of pacing around. I kept turning the lights on and making Chachi walk back and forth. And
I couldn't see for a good 45 minutes after that, but hey, that's
good.
part of the job.
I was tweaking and tweaking and tweaking, and we were really just, I don't know, I almost wish we had more to do because once we ran out of stuff to do, we were waiting, but we were in a hurry about it. Like, we were waiting hectically, frantically waiting.
I've never been anxious for more than 4 hours until today. It was so bad.
But it was cool. Like, in the couple of moments that we managed to just chill out, I mean, we weren't, like, nervous and jerky, but, like, deep down in the core of us, on the inside, we were screaming with terror.
It's true. You just never want to mess up,
So, yeah, I mean, we spent, walking up and down the one little street there, looking at the beautiful people of Pittsburgh, which we were in a really nice part of town, and everybody walking around, it was all the beautiful people hanging out in pubs and shopping and fine clothes.
Couple guys in kilts.
Nice
too.
Cars, guys, brothers in kilts, waved at them. It's funny because on the way out, we took a wrong turn, wound up going like 1 block out of the way, and we're instantly in the crack district. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So anyway, talent rolled in a little bit late. We had time to make friends with the DJ, who was one of the better of his sort, knew his gear very well, had invested in some really nice Yorkville stuff. Was taking care of not just the reception, but also the service in an outdoor space, and also, I think, some music for cocktails out in the bar.
Yes.
So he was busy. But we did get a chance to meet up with him and talk to him a little bit about powered speakers and different little Go packages, and find out how much more he makes than we do for slaving away.
He seemed pretty stressed, but...
Yeah, he was definitely hustling, and we offered to help, and he was, I don't know. There was a little bit of a pissing contest going on there to figure out who was more macho.
That's true.
In a good-natured sort of way. I mean, there was definitely no malice. Hotel staff was great. Guys setting up catering helped us out with everything we needed. And the event planner from the hotel was just a swell guy. Like, big, jolly, happy, older gentleman. Had everything well in hand. Had 4 nervous actors and 2 nervous sound guys and some slightly nervous
we made him cry
photographers
with our talent.
Well, not with our talent. The talent.
Well,
we helped the talent make him cry.
We just made the talent louder. But I even had chills during a couple of numbers.
Well, that's the joy of working for this group, is that they're just so stinking good. We didn't get a chance to meet this company. The last time Anthony and I did a gig for them, we had a chance to talk a little bit, but the actors are polishing their material last minute. We're going over the rig with a fine-tooth comb, revising schedules as things come in, trying to get a bite to eat. So there's just not a lot of socializing that goes on. And then once it's done, everybody finally heaves a sigh. And with the last company, we got to actually spend some time. We had a little bit of time to have a drink or two with them before we struck. And then we went back to the hotel and had another drink with them, and really struck up some nice relationships and just enjoyed ourselves. Like I talked about in the last podcast, which was, probably 10 ago, about the experience working with them. They're just performers of the highest caliber you can imagine. I mean, probably better singers than most of the pop singers out there, because they're doing it with no auto-tune. They're doing it without a net. I mean, they're not doing familiar material. They're doing material that somebody wrote recently.
I think they said that they got it.
Yeah, I think
within the week.
I think the revisions were done Wednesday or Thursday, and here we are on Saturday. They had 2 days to rehearse it, so they were polishing right up to the minute. We kind of, I think it was Chachi and I that sort of broached the subject, like just put it out there sort of as a joke so that we could all laugh a little bit and get some of the nerves out. That it was really terrifying. Like on the inside, we were all screaming about it, and you could just see it. I mean, they all knew each other pretty well apparently, and had some banter and some inside jokes going, and we were able to, after a little while, kind of crack a few jokes too and get out on the fun a little bit. But everybody was really just sort of very centered and in their own thoughts, and I don't know, we were all stressing about everything. It was down to the point where we were like all 6 of us were stressing other people out about, oh my God, how are we going to get the 3 bar stools in there? And I finally said, it's 3 freaking bar stools. It's not like we're going to give the show away with 3 bar stools. I'm just going to go put them in there. And so I did it, and off we went. It was a shame, because once it ended, there really wasn't a chance to hang out with them. Like, they sort of got clear of the room, because we were set up on the dance floor. I mean, it was not a big ballroom. It was maybe 50 feet deep and 120 feet wide. So we were actually set up the short way in the room, which was a challenge to cover with 2 pole speakers, but we managed that. It also sounded really nice.
It surprisingly did.
I think it's probably the nicest hotel ballroom I've ever heard. It had just awesome high ceilings, and the wall treatment was just right. And the parallel wall that we were shooting into was a foldable barrier, which had some sort of fabric treatment on it, which it sucked up the sound just right. And the ceiling and the other walls the reverb was just gorgeous. I should have sampled it. But anyway, when we were done, we had to scramble because, we had, towers and lights and wedges and a keyboard and all this stuff on stage, and cables just run neatly but run everywhere. So we got all our crap off the dance floor in, I think, about 3 minutes, and we just shuffled it all to the side.
I have never struck a stage faster.
Yep, and fortunately, the lights were bolted right to the speaker poles. We just unplugged them, shoved them in the hall, started grabbing wedges, grabbing the instruments, and rolling cables just as quick as we could. So, within 3 or 4 minutes max. It was funny because the wedding planner, the hotel guy, actually complimented us on it. We were, it's 3 minutes and 20 seconds since the last note. We're almost done. He's like, wow, you guys are fast and quiet. And Chachi was like,
you have to be in this industry.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was no slouch wedding. I mean, we're from the country, and an expensive wedding in our neck of the woods would be like $8,000 or $10,000 affair, and I don't know, but I suspect that just our portion of the entertainment may have cost Uncle Ted more than my own wedding did. It was a room full of doctors. The happy couple were both doctors. I mean, there was just money coming out of the walls. It smelled of leather and mahogany in there. So, I mean, it wasn't like we were just down at the fire hall and like, well, just give us a second. Y'all go have a chew and a spit while we get this stuff out of the way. We had to really move like a crack team of audio commandos. And we were looking smooth. Like, I got the black cargos on. Chachi's got the black dress pants, black dress shirts, matching cabbie hats. I mean, we were looking badass in there, I'll tell you what.
I did have my Secret Service earpiece for my radio.
Had the two-way radios working. Even the security guys in the hotel didn't mess with us. Did you notice them take a step back when we came down out of the green room?
It's true.
I mean, they were eyeballing us like, what's up with the guys with the radios and boots?
I did feel like we were escorting the actors when we were coming down there.
We totally should have gotten one in front and one behind.
I was thinking about it. Why didn't we just do it?
You should have said it. So at any rate, we finally, dinner kept running longer and longer. We finally got the word to go. They're like, the DJ actually picked up his mic to say something about the cake, and they're like, oh my God, it's Uncle Ted, he's doing the intro.
As we're running down the hallway, Uncle Ted comes out of the bathroom.
Right. Give me a minute, boys, he says. So we sort of threw the wireless mics at the actors, ripped the cover off the board, fired stuff up, flipping laptops open, slamming headphones on, getting in position, and then we just stood there for 5 minutes, shaking.
The longest 5 minutes of my life, I will add.
Uncle Ted was actually on so long enough that I ran to the bathroom to have a nervous pee, so I didn't have it running down my leg during the 12th minute of the performance.
It was horrifying. We got in there, we uncovered the mix, and then all the bridesmaids were like, who are these people?
Yeah.
And the bride was just staring at me like, what are you doing at my wedding?
Which, okay, I mean, we almost, well, we didn't almost, but I mean, like, we started to pop the cap just a hair early on that, but it was like, holy crap, it's go time. So and fortunately, I think that was probably the biggest glitch that we had, was just that little bit of like, oh crap, we're going, oh no, we're not.
Well, even the actors were making fun of how, like, we always walk with purpose. They're like, man, they're just always on a mission. It's kind of true.
That's the tech walk. Actually, I heard him say that too over our shoulders. Like, all right, well, we got to find, what was his name, Eric. We got to find Eric, the hotel guy. The thing is, you call Eric's number and it's his desk phone, and he's always out in the building somewhere. I mean, I think he had 4 events. Like, there was our wedding. There was
a college, like
a fraternity reunion.
Yeah,
a family reunion. Huge. I mean, we're talking hundreds of people at each one of these events, and then another wedding, as well as some other stuff going on in the parking lot. So, like, he had a fliggity full house, and he was just as cool and as calm. But the thing about finding Eric is you can't call him because you get his desk phone, and the people at the front desk won't call him. And so he's sort of like, he's always there just at the last minute when you need to ask him something. Or he would always just pop up right when we're like, oh, we should ask Eric that. And he'd walk into the room. But, like, I have a feeling that he's, I don't know, it's kind of like Gandalf. Like, you can't find him unless he wants you to.
It's true.
Unless he wants to be found.
The problem was he was hiding in the room when we were trying to be all hush-hush about it.
He was in the room when we couldn't go in there.
We were like, do we put the stools on the stage? I don't know. Where's Eric? Oh, in there. We can't go in there.
He's in there, so...
oh, boy.
Yeah, we managed to hide 4 actors and 2 lanky techs bristling with radios and headphones and things.
Actually, the funny part is while we were sitting out in the, you could call it the lobby area, the bride and the groom both came out, just kind of looked at us like, whatever.
Like, hey, what's up?
And went on, they were taking a bathroom break, whatever. Just didn't even ask questions why we were at their wedding.
So, I mean, it was pretty obvious. I mean, the DJ was set up in an alcove. The dance floor, maybe 20 feet square, was in front of him, and we were all over it. I mean, there were cables run the whole way around the perimeter. There were lights. There were extra speaker stands. I don't know. Maybe some people thought, I don't know, it just had something to do with, like, oh, that's going to be for the dance floor.
Maybe they just thought it was going to be really, really loud. People don't know.
People don't know, most of them. And we found out from people afterward that, people knew something was up, but they had no idea whatsoever what to expect. So, at any rate, we finally, Uncle Ted came up, said a few words, and got everybody's attention. It was lovely. The way the hotel staff and the caterer planned it, the dinner was done, cake and coffee had been served, and they were going to pause right there, let us do our thing, and then clear the dishes. So, like, everybody was there with a full belly, already had some booze, were having their coffee, they'd had a chance to go out and have a smoke, have a pee or whatever. It was the perfect time to drop the entertainment. The actors walked in, flourished at the piano, said a couple words, and launched into it. And it was interesting because I sort of went into suspended animation. Like I was intensely involved with the mix and the computer and looking at Chachi, and I was mixing from the side of the stage on headphones, so I'm looking at him for prompts. I'm looking at the actors to see if the monitors need adjusting.
Yeah, I was out in the house just for reference.
Yeah, and I had him. In addition to he wasn't just a carrier. I mean, I had him out in the house as a set of ears because I couldn't hear from where I was mixing, apart from the headphone mix, which isn't necessarily the best.
Ideal.
So we were on two-way radio. We actually did it mostly by hand signals, which was slick. But I sort of just went into hyper mode. Like it wasn't until afterward, and I had to really think about it, because we talked to the producer afterward by phone, and she was like, "Well, how was the crowd?" I was like, thinking back, I'm like, well, I mean, they weren't particularly rowdy. I mean, they were better than the last time we worked for them, because the people at that show were busy wheeling and dealing. They were out making the big bucks, closing deals. But with this show, I mean, it was they were all there for the bride and the groom. The show was all about the bride and the groom. The bride and the groom were actually sitting 1 foot downstage from the monitors. I mean, they were right there, front and center. So it was just nice. Everybody was in the room. Everybody was paying attention, and they were engaged. They were watching. Like nobody was picking their nose or leaving or looking somewhere else. They were all zoned right in. But it was a room full of doctors and probably lawyers. I mean, it was really a room full of the top brass. There were rich folk in this room, so it wasn't like I don't feel like we really could have expected them to get rowdy. Although listening to the crowd mics, the applause was
there was a better crowd response than I expected, really.
Right, because they weren't really a gregarious crowd. I mean, the door would come open when somebody would leave, and we were waiting in the hall, and it just sounded like it didn't sound like 150 people. It sounded like 20 people, just sort of having some quiet conversations. So, like, they were definitely not a boisterous or rowdy crowd to begin with. They definitely got pulled right into the entertainment, and it was just tastefully done. I mean, it wasn't like a roast where, I mean, they did mention the groom's nickname a couple of times, and I mean, it had the quality of really good theater where things are witty, and you might have to be kind of smart to catch some of the jokes, and like tasteful but not dry. The writing, I thought, was just spectacular for having to just piece something together out of somebody's life story. I mean, it's how many people nervously meet each other and go on some dates and eventually get engaged. I mean, it's kind of the story of everyone's life. How do you take that, in particular, do that in a room full of their closest friends and relatives and have it be interesting and engaging? So kudos definitely to the people that wrote that. But let me see, I'm kind of rambling on.
So anyway, I'm in the house.
Yeah,
That's where we started. I'm just reminding you where we were.
Oh, okay, so yeah, I mean, we sort of went on autopilot, and for me, like, I don't know, Chachi was more aware of the crowd than I was. It doesn't matter if I'm in a room with 10 people and it's a coffee shop gig, or if I'm at a stadium gig and there's thousands of people around me. I generally don't notice the crowd at all, because as important as they are, unless they're throwing beer bottles at me or leaving, they're not really of a direct, like, it's not my job to engage them, it's my job to help the talent engage them, so I focus on the talent. And man, what a group of kids! I mean, I don't know how old they are. I mean, I probably shouldn't call them kids. Some of them were probably my age or older. But
I get 20s or 30s.
They walked in the door looking amazing. I mean, they were just four of the most attractive people I've seen all month. And then they got changed and got their hair did and got a little makeup on. I mean, when we walked into the green room after they were all ready, I mean, they were just stunning. I mean, they all looked like they stepped out of a fashion magazine. I mean, you could just tell from the way they carry themselves and the way they talk that there was goodness packed in there. And when they hit the stage, I mean, there's that phenomenon where no matter how good you are and how trained you are, you just can't ever give it your all during sound check or rehearsal. And just being in the room and, when it's finally go time and all the pent-up frustration and worry and adrenaline, they straight up converted all the nerves, all the worry, directly into awesome sauce. I mean, I don't know how many times have I said of this podcast, but I mean, these are Broadway level actors. Some of them have come from Broadway and are going to Broadway, and I mean, just people in the prime of their lives and at the top of their games, performing on my stuff 10 feet from me to a rapt audience. I mean, it's just, that's drugs. I mean, I don't think about getting high. I think about getting another gig like that. And when it was done, when it was done, the pressure was really on for us because they're waiting on us to do the father-daughter dance and the mother-son dance.
Right, yeah.
And it was cool. Like, we had our own little corner. We yanked everything out of there, got on the road, and we were gone, driving away.
9:30.
Yeah, so I think 35 minutes.
35 minutes.
We were out.
I mean, minus the fact that the GPS told us to go in, 8 circles just to get to the...
Oh, driving to Pittsburgh is nuts. It's like trying to drive on a jungle gym. It's just all... Anyway, if you've been to Pittsburgh, you know. If you haven't been to Pittsburgh, don't bother unless you really have to. Cool town, though. Cool little city. Like, the stadium was lit up. We wound up on a hotel balcony for a minute. The lights were already on at the stadium for a game, and we're looking down at the river, and you can see all the bridges and the hills. It was pretty cool.
It was nice.
So once we finally got out, the actors apparently blew right out of there. I mean, we struck for 20 minutes, and before we started loading the wheels, I went up I was going to say goodnight to them. They were already gone out of there. I think they got to the pub quicker than we wished we could have, which is sad that we missed that.
They did invite us.
They did invite us. We were already down the road. And if we had more time built into our schedule, we definitely would have hung out with them and pumped them up. Because, I mean, I hope somebody turns them onto this podcast so they can hear what we thought of them and how much we respect them and enjoyed their work and got high off it. It was just such a turn on. So anyway, once we finally got in the car and got straightened out and got across 2 bridges and through some nasty neighborhoods.
Skipped Uncle Ted.
Oh, yeah. Well, I wasn't going to make a huge deal about it. But anyway,
he's the one who's paying for it, so he thought it was good.
The wealthy uncle who hired the group on to play, I'm sure he approached the actors as well, the performers, but Chachi and I happened to be standing next to each other. He approached us, shook our hands, slipped us a little something, told us to divide it up, and it just kind of gushed about it for a couple of minutes. He
was happy. The way he made it sound was that he was worried that people wouldn't be focused on it, wouldn't like it. But from what I saw, I was out in the house. From what I saw, everybody was watching.
Oh, so, yeah, definitely.
Everybody was interested.
It was really about the best kind of audience you could hope for. I mean, we talk about what kind of mics or what kind of system or what kind of material will play to an attentive audience. You're like, all right, well, you need a smaller system. It's an attentive crowd, or if it's a rowdy crowd, you need a bigger system or to do things differently. I mean, it was really a class joint.
It was.
But so that was nice too to hear from the guy who sparked the idea, decided to hire this group on, and I mean, he was all kinds of happy. I'm sure the champagne didn't hurt, but he was
probably as nervous as we were because he didn't really have much to do with. He just paid for it and said, I'm going to say a 30-second speech and then it's in your hands. So he was probably a little concerned.
Yeah, and I know he probably got to, I think a lot of the family had input. I'm pretty sure the mother and the grandmother had a lot of storytelling to do about how things went down. But, other than that brief involvement of, telling the stories, I mean, that really was a ton of trust on his part. Because I know, we don't come cheap for these events. We made buckets of money. I'm not going to mention amounts because it doesn't matter. We got paid very, very, very well to come do this. I don't imagine the actors get chintzy wages. I mean, I think a lot of the people in the troupe just do this a few times a month, and that keeps their rent paid. So, I mean, he was definitely laying out some cash for this thing, and I think a lot of it was relief, but it was just cool to see how much he enjoyed it and just enjoyed, and it wasn't. I want to represent. I wasn't even going to bring him up, but I want to represent him in the right light. I mean,
I didn't want to bring him up because
he was almost like a little kid. This thing that he saw and thought was cool on TV, and then got to check out a little bit. Finally came in the mail, and I think it was everything he hoped for. And it was just he was kind of riding high on that at the end of it.
Well, that's why I wanted to talk about it because he was the client, and when the client's happy, that's all that really matters. At least to me.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we were sort of thinking of the happy couple as being, the goal in the end.
They liked it. I mean, from what I heard from the mom and everybody, she does not like surprises. But hey,
Yeah, they started by making her sit right in front. That was a bit of a something.
She did bring her champagne, though.
Yeah. So anyway, once we got on the road and got to where we could just drive on divided highway for a while, we pretty much wound up just laughing like lunatics and screaming, and then we immediately got out the old school heavy metal. Because
we were like 12-year-old girls.
Yeah. And then we turned into 12-year-old boys. Show tunes will just get stuck in your head, my head anyway. Chachi claims to be immune to it, but the DJ walked in the afternoon, and so from 2 until we started, I had an Owl City song stuck in my head, and then every time the actors would sing, I got a Backstreet Boys stuck in my head, a Backstreet Boys song stuck in my head. And
see, now it's stuck in my head again.
Well, we're going to have to play more Iron Maiden. So anyway, we got to a rest stop. We got some much-needed food because all we had to eat all day. We had some crappy McDonald's at like 10 in the morning.
Was an $18 candy bar.
Well, yeah, because the only place to go was like all these hotsy-totsy restaurants. They were all crammed, so like we didn't have time to like go sit for 2 hours and get a frittata at the wine bar down the street. And the food in the hotel at the restaurant was probably astronomical. So we'd like wander into the gift shop, buy a $3 candy bar and a $3 bottle of water.
John, you got a $7 payday.
I got a $7 payday. I had a $38 bag of trail mix, which I'm going to savor each individual piece of with tweezers later on.
We spent more in the gift shop than we did on gas.
We may have. Come on. Because I only put $50 in so far. I'm still at a quarter tank.
I mean, I kept my receipts. I'm pretty sure I spent at least $20 or more on a drink and 2 candy.
I mean, it wasn't really, but like every time we walked in there, it was like a $3 something and a $3 something. So you're like, like we're starving too. Like we had an Egg McMuffin at 10, and then a candy bar at 3, and then another candy bar at like 7.
Some trail mix at 7:30.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Because we were about to fall over. So anyway, we got to a Subway, got some chowiness, decided we were going to do a podcast. But first, we needed the detox from the show tunes. And as much as we both really, I don't know, I guess I shouldn't be ashamed of it. We both really enjoy show tunes, theater music. I mean,
I love it.
However gay it sounds, it's just, most of the stuff is just so well written, and it's just so musically different from what you hear on the radio or anything else.
Well, you can't work in theater if you don't like listening to the music.
You have to, but it's the worst earworms ever, because the problem is, and I'll explain this is your science lesson for today, the reason something gets stuck in your head is because your brain knows that there's a whole piece, a whole composition, but it can only remember specifically parts of it, usually the hook, or maybe a couple lines of a verse. Your brain won't rest until you either hear the whole song straight through, then you can sometimes disengage, or until you get your brain enough focused on something non-creative. So there's 2 ways to get show tunes out of your heads, kid. This is something we have proven to be true by our own experience, but we read it in scientific articles. It was figured out by much smarter monkeys than we are. You can either get your brain to shift sides by doing math, so like balance your checkbook, balance some quadratic equations, plot some graphs, like balance a spreadsheet. Do something that gets your brain fairly actively engaged numerically, and that'll switch you over to, I forget if it's the right or the left side, but whatever. It gets your brain working on the other hemisphere. Or listen to the song all the way through. We're too tired and giddy to do math, and we don't have the pop tunes that they well, actually, I have the rehearsal CD, but nobody wants to listen to that again. That had a purpose, and its time is over. So we blast old school heavy metal because it's complex, it's upbeat, you can play it really, really loud, and it sounds really, really good, even in a minivan. So what do? We blasted some Volbeats, which if you don't know about the Danish Elvis metal, you need to get into that. We haven't talked about Volbeat in a while. If Elvis and the Misfits had a baby that was raised by Metallica and Motorhead in Denmark, that would be Volbeat. So we did some Volbeat, then what did we do?
Megadeth.
Did a little Megadeth, a little not old school, like mid-era Megadeth from the 90s. Popped in one Iron Maiden tune, then got the flavor for some Annihilator, little Canadian old school thrash. Then
decided that we love Iron Maiden so much we listened to 4 more songs.
And this is the reason we're a little ragged. We weren't shouting all day, but we sang full voice, both parts. Chachi sang Bruce's parts, I sang Adrian's. 3 Maiden tunes in a row. So that was what, like 9 98 minutes.
Yeah.
We're actually almost home.
That's
But
insane.
yeah, we're circling Buffalo because the 3 Iron Maiden tunes got us almost home.
I transformed into Bruce Dickinson. It was ridiculous.
So then, I think, all right, we've described the process pretty much. Let me give you the evolution of how the gear went together for this show. Originally, there was not a 4-day movie shoot scheduled to start today. So I was going to borrow from the church the 8-in, 8-out Motu Mark of the Unicorn audio interface that we have. Because it comes with software, you can actually use it as a mixer. So I'm like, all right, 8 inputs, that's 4 wireless, a piano, a couple extra things if we need it. I've got 8 outputs, so that's left, right, 3 monitor mixes, and if I need a feed to somewhere else. And when it's time to record, line up the tracks in audio or in Reaper and press record, off you go. But the church bought it for the movie, so I had to leave it home for the movie. So we wound up borrowing Gordon's Presonus Studio Live 24 and got a FireWire cable, loaded the software. That linked up beautifully with my MacBook. I just plugged it in, Reaper saw it, lined the tracks up, pre-fader, off we go. I also had the opportunity when I was packing up yesterday. I thought, I've already done this gig 100 times in my head, so I had a pretty good idea about the layout. I set up my tracks my channels that I knew I was going to have and channels that I thought I might need. Like, are they going to have playback? Are we going to need an extra mic for this or that? Where am I going to put the spare mic? Where am I going to put the crowd mics? So it actually wound up being, we wound up not needing the playback, so I think it was only an 11 channels show when all was said and done. So anyway, we had the Presonus, rented and borrowed 4 channels of wireless mic and handheld wireless. This group had worked with either Countryman, like over-the-ear style lavalier or clip-on lavaliers in the past. The problem is they don't always work with the same company. They get different techs all the time, different sound systems, different rooms, different skill levels of the techs. They knew they could get better sound with handheld mics, and they found that audiences didn't care, and maybe it even made it look a little more rock and roll to do it that way. So it was just handhelds, super easy to set up. The graphs were flat on the house and the wedges. I think I might have rolled a little lows out of the wedges because the piano, the bass notes of the piano tend to build up on stage because there's bass coming out of the back of the main cabinets. No processing because it's all in the board. Set up our EQs, set up effects in case we needed them. Didn't do any compressing on the channels, just did because because I was recording, I didn't want any processing on it. So I bust them down, did some compression on the buses for the live sound because that was after the recording points were taken. For speakers, I had 4 QSC K10s, self-powered, 2 for mains, 2 for wedges, and I borrowed a 5th one from a friend to use for the keyboard monitor. Rented a keyboard from a friend, got a fairly nice Yamaha. It wasn't a full keyboard. They did request a full 88. I was only able to give them a 68, but it had a nice action on it. And for some reason, like, it's kind of a lower level Yamaha. I just feel like, some of the other ones on their list, like they wanted a Roland 700 or a Yamaha S90. We own both of those at the church, and I just don't feel like they sit in the mix as nice as the Yamaha CP150 that we had. Maybe it's because the little Yamaha samples are crappier, not as deep, not as resonant or something, but in a dense mix, or when the piano is not necessarily the most important thing, I just have to chop so much out of other piano sounds to make them sit nice in a mix. And this little Yamaha, I rolled out just a little bit I had the filter centered at about 350 and made it 2 octaves wide. I took it down 4, maybe 5 dB, just that nice gentle shelf to scoop the piano notes out of the vocal range. The graphs, or the channel EQs on the vocal mics were darn near flat. I rolled a little bit of bottom out of the one male vocalist because he at one point went into a real kind of Johnny Cash baritone voice. Let's see what else. Because we were recording and we wanted the full experience, I put 2, they're like the baby brothers to the Shure SM81, 2 pencil condenser mics, small diaphragm condenser mics, right on top of the main speakers. The reason I did that is if you're going to have mics in the room to pick up applause. You might also want it to use some of the ambient sound, like try and capture some of the reverb that's going on in the room. If they're in a position that's not at time zero, you have a bunch of work to do after the fact to make sure you don't get Coleman filtering and other artifacts in there. So by placing them right on top of the speaker cabs, they actually don't pick up that much. Once you high pass them, you roll off everything below, say, 350 or 400. Below those frequencies, audio is sort of more omnidirectional, so like the bass notes are coming out of the cabinet going every direction. The highs are only running away from the mic, although they are actually in polarity, so you don't even need to flip the phase switch on the channels. But they're also, the speakers are just in a great place. They're looking right at the crowd, at the majority of the crowd. So if you're trying to get crowd sounds coming back, you could do a lot worse than to slap them right on top of the speakers. I had a piece of foam in my mic box that I use for an SM57 miking trick that I do on a cello. I cut that in half and taped it down under each one of the mics, secured them with gaff, just to keep some vibration noise out of them. And they work great. We listened back. The applause sounded, just like a roar of applause. And what's nice is because we had one on each speaker stack, even though the system was in mono, we had this nice stereo ambience coming back. And granted, during a song, it's pretty heavy with the sound of the band. So I may work out like some reverse gating or something like that, so that like when the song eases back, you get a little more of that room sound coming in, and you kind of feel like you were there. But I want it to be better than just camcorder audio or cell phone audio of the room. I want to try and accurately recreate the space that they were in. Although, worst comes to worst, I'll only turn them on when there was applause or cheering, and I'll just fill in some reverb with a nice plug-in. And how are we doing for time?
For time?
Wiggle that trackpad.
42 minutes.
Oh, wow. So we got like 18 minutes left to jabber. We could just wrap this up, put some Iron Maiden on, and wrap the thing up. You got anything else you want to... I do this. I monopolize. I run at the mouth.
I remember you wanted me to interview once, and you did both your interview and my answers. So,
I do tend to feed.
I don't know. I really
answers
don't.
a lot.
I don't have anything to say.
Well, anyway, it was, in addition to me, the financial benefits of today are far and away the least of it. It's always fun to work something challenging. To me, it's almost more fun to work something that's terrifying. We're going to have to actually, I'll fly it in later.
Oh, okay.
The Iron Maiden. Yeah,
We're still listening to it. I don't care.
Oh, we're definitely blasting Iron Maiden all the way to Buffalo. I don't care if I have a voice tomorrow or not. I'm just the sound guy on that one. I don't have to be Mr. Personality or anything.
Yeah, I know.
But beyond the financial gain, beyond it being the job, the excitement of trying to plan the best you can, and then having to hurdle various things that come up last minute, or even once you're on the ground, knowing you're going to have to deal with a bunch of people who may or may not be nice.
Turns out they were fantastic.
They were fantastic. I have a feeling there's not anybody in the water coolers that's not nice. I just feel like they attract and they pick people who are...
I've had some nasty people I've dealt with.
Oh, in theater you can, but I feel like people who are only deserving of superlative adjectives work for this organization. But you never know, like with the hotel staff, they were just the best you could possibly hope for. And it was a pretty upscale place, so they're very service-oriented, very accommodating, but also the fact that they seem genuinely cheerful. The catering staff, everybody there was terrific to us. But to get to see the creative energy that went into this, in the writing, and especially in the performance, like watching them just singing into their hairbrushes in the dressing room was kind of awe-inspiring.
And his toothbrush.
Oh yeah, that was one cool moment that happened. We were still sort of... we were definitely comfortable with each other. We recognized their level of professionalism, and I feel like we were able to convey ours to them, and that they were very accepting of our work right off the bat. But there was still that, everybody was nervous and in their own heads. In the green room, where we were sort of in the shelter and away from everybody else, and we were kind of let the hair down a little bit. While they were getting dressed, they were all picking up hairbrushes and toothbrushes and things to just hold for dummy mics. And while the one guy was getting out his iPad to play a little iPad piano for him, the dude clicked on his electric toothbrush. So it's buzzing away. And he shuts it off. And I was like, oh, was that the tuning note? Was that concert B flat? And they all stopped dead in their tracks and looked at me. And then they all went, I'm like, oh, it was a little sharp, wasn't it? And they're like, yeah, it was closer to C. Look at this guy. All right. He's the sound guy. So I feel like I not only managed to win him over on my technical prowess, not that I'm trying to sound like I got a big head or anything, but being able to slip that little musical joke in there right at that moment was that was a nice little jab to kind of let them know I was with them and I sort of understood them. And I don't know. I'm definitely going to remember that moment. That was a fun time. So yeah, it looks like we're going to wrap this one early. This might be the shortest podcast ever, except for the one I did completely by myself.
Well, when we started it, we had 94 miles on the GPS before our next step, and now we're at 2 miles.
Wow, so must have been flying. I honestly haven't looked at the speedometer too much. No, it wasn't that many miles. When we started the podcast?
Yeah.
When we started listening to Iron Maiden, we had 90 miles.
I forgot Iron Maiden stops time.
So yeah, we covered 45 miles listening to Iron Maiden and then 45 minutes listening to this, and that's why we burned up 90 miles of road.
Righty.
So now we're gonna, let me see, we're 89 miles from home, so that leaves us time for at least 2 Iron Maiden songs if we're gonna listen to live tracks.
Yep.
And maybe a third one if we make a pit stop. So anyway, gonna do the usual here, do the wrap up. Want to say thanks for listening. It's kind of a busy week for us last week. This actually probably isn't going to air until all this is long gone. But I did have to post on the blog, which you, by the way, can find if the address is not displayed, at smart2noise.blogspot.com. Pro audio blog there where we just, we're not trying to be the last word on anything. We're not trying to write scientific white papers. We're just throwing out ideas, get discussion going, which brings me to our next point. We love your input. We've got a couple of guys we're fast becoming good friends with in Germany, where we're apparently developing a following. Although, looking at the metrics, the Brits and the Swedish are actually, they're getting a few more page views in on the blog than the Germans. So, Michael, Ika, if you're over there, see if you can get a couple more of your friends to tune in. Let's see if you can beat the Brits and the Swedes and top the list of European reading countries. I'm disqualifying Russia because I'm not sure any actual living souls from Russia read or listen. I think it's just spam bots and hackers and whatnot. So, although, if anyone from Russia is listening, or any of the other Eastern European countries, we would love to hear from you too. In fact, if somebody sent me an email in Cyrillic, I would probably print it out, have it bronzed, and hang it on the wall in my office. Which leads me to the last thing. I started out to say this, and so I will try and finish it rapidly because I tend to ramble when I do this. But we definitely appreciate your input. Michael and Ika have contributed idea after idea after idea. Shoot, I just missed my exit.
No, you actually... No, actually, they wanted you to exit 2 exits ago, and I didn't realize it in time.
Oh, is that why the number's counting up now?
Yeah, that's why we're back at 2 miles.
We're still 89 miles from home, and I've been talking for 5 minutes. All right. Well, where's the next exit? 2 miles? Okay, I'm going to attempt to wrap this up in 2 minutes. So anyway, what we were saying is we sort of wrote all the ideas that we can think of, and now we're sort of relying on our audience to tell us what you would like to hear about. We're hopefully, in the few days that I was out busy doing stuff and not writing posts, people had a chance to go back through the blog, see what's there, see what's not there. If you see something and you would like further information and ideas about it, let us know. If there's a hole in the coverage and there's something that you'd like to know about, let us know. If there's somebody you think we should interview, either by email or by Skype on the podcast here, let us know about that. If you would like to sit in with us, we don't video broadcast when we record because we're generally not near the internet. We're either around a campfire or in a car traveling down the thruway. But we're really just open at this point. We're trying to kind of get a little bit of a community built up here, and I think we're kind of just about hitting that point. But I do want to tell people, do not be afraid to get in touch with us. We're super friendly. We love to share our information, swap ideas and thoughts with you guys. And as far as posting on the blog, definitely don't be nervous about that or embarrassed. If any sort of nastiness pops up, like can't happen in forums and things, we're going to straight up disallow that. Definitely feel free to come on and get in heated arguments with us, but keep it clean, keep it nice. We have no problem at all arguing passionately for our thoughts and ideas, as long as we can do it without becoming insulted. So, there you have it. We're trying to get this little community going for your benefit as well as ours. As always, if we're wrong about something, you can call us up, send us a line, and correct us. So, now I'm going to make my exit and hopefully get pointed in the right direction to get home. All right, Miss GPS. Is there like a nicer voice? I feel like I'm in trouble with her every time I miss a turn. Well, at any rate.
No, she's a little snooty, but whatever.
She's a bit of a hotsy-totsy. So here we are. I'm going to concentrate on the road and get driving in the right places. So tune in next week. Thanks for tuning in, those of you that did, and send us your emails. Find us on Facebook. Hit us up. Check you later. We are out.